So LACNETS is a member of INCA, which is a global NET patient advocacy group. And Stephanie is the current president. I'm actually the current treasurer. And so we serve on the executive board together. And she's also the executive director of the FEOPARA Alliance. So she is going to speak about spreading awareness globally and INCA's Think NENs program. A fun fact about Stephanie is that she hiked Mount Whitney, which is the highest mountain in the contiguous US at 14,000 feet. And she did this in 2020. So welcome, Stephanie. We're glad you could join us.
Thank you so much for the lovely introduction and for the invitation to speak today. Thanks to Lisa and Heather and Kavya and everybody associated with organizing this. You already introduced me. I'm here in my volunteer capacity as president of the International Neuroendocrine Cancer Alliance, otherwise known as INCA for the rest of this presentation. And my day job is executive director of FEOPARA Alliance. So our agenda today, we will talk about INCA and a global voice for NETs and how we serve in this capacity and why is this important to you as patients? What does it matter? We're going to talk about NETs and the rare voice. Raise your hand if you're wearing zebra today. Lots of zebras in the room. Awesome. We're going to talk about SCAN, which was a self-administered online survey done by INCA in 2019. And then we're going to wrap it up and talk about a program that's launching tomorrow in honor of NET Cancer Day, which we will also talk a little bit more about, called Think NENs, which is designed to educate general practitioners about neuroendocrine neoplasms. So this is our global map. Each pink dot or purple dot represents a patient advocacy group that is focused on serving their community of NET patients. So as you can see, INCA is truly a global community associated with serving neuroendocrine tumor patients. Here is the list of logos associated with all of the member organizations. There's LACNETs. And there's FEOPARA Alliance, the organization I serve. So I am honored to work with Lisa on the board of directors for INCA. Okay, so let's take a moment and talk about why it's important to have a global voice for NETs. As a patient, who cares? What does it matter to me? Well, I'll tell you, first of all, it means more research. When we band together globally and show a full show of force across the world, we look really attractive to academia and industry researchers. And this is important because if we show a full force across the world to these researchers, they'll realize that we're going to support them in their research efforts, just like we support Dr. Del Rovero by participating in clinical trials. So this means more research, of course, means more potential treatments, more potential diagnostics, and all kinds of good things like earlier diagnosis as well as a better patient pathway overall. And this is our attractive researcher saying, what are you doing Friday night? Let's go out on a date. Collaboration. We get to work with all of these other patient advocacy organization members that are part of our mission to help NET patients. Personally, we worked with LACNETs last year. We had a patient conference in Bethesda, Maryland at the NIH. We try to corral Dr. Del Rovero to help us out in whatever way we can. So it allows us to collaborate with other NET organizations, which we are an organization. INCA has, usually most of the organizations that are associated with INCA have 0 staff members. So it's driven by volunteer leadership who are predominantly patients and caregivers. LACNETs, as well as FEOPARA Alliance, and a few of the other NET organizations, specifically in the US, have a few staff members, but that does not mean that we have a plethora of resources to work together. So collaboration fuels our motivation, and that brings me to my last point, which is long-term dedication. How many of you, when you were diagnosed, felt isolated and alone, like nobody knew what the illness was about? And it was difficult to explain to family members. Well, that's kind of what we feel like as staff members and volunteer leadership. People don't understand what we're doing. We have to try to convince them that we matter and we care. And so having that long-term dedication, being able to partner with other organizations that are similar to ours and helping. We have the same problems, we have the same issues, but we found each other. And just like you guys found LACNETs, all of us found INCA, so it's the same thing. So here's INCA's vision, a world where all patients with neuroendocrine cancer and NETs get a timely diagnosis, optimal treatment, support and care, and ultimately a cure. These are the pillars associated with INCA: awareness and information, access to optimal treatment, diagnostics and care, advancing research, and evidence-based advocacy. Here are some of our goals: reduce time to diagnosis, equal access to treatment and diagnostics globally, use of multidisciplinary teams, encouraging patient engagement with research, patient-led research, empowering patient advocacy groups, and increasing awareness amongst clinicians. Now, I don't have time to go through all of the amazing programs that INCA provides, but I will mention a few, and this one is a picture of our summit. Every year, as many of the patient advocacy group members get together as we can, usually in Europe, just because most of the organizations are kind of centered around Europe, and we come together and we talk about all of the issues, ways we can better meet the patient needs. You'll see Dr. Del Rivero in there, as well as Lisa and I in that picture, but it's an opportunity for us all to brainstorm and troubleshoot on how we can better meet the patient needs globally. It's a really important time for us to get together and work together. We also partner with various professional societies. Here's a picture of our symposium with the European Neuroendocrine Tumor Society. We also work closely with the North American Neuroendocrine Tumor Society. And why does this matter? Well, it provides legitimacy for us amongst clinicians and researchers, and that's important. INCA also has a boot camp for patient researchers. I'm getting out of sorts here. Patient advocate researchers. And we've heard a lot about research here today. And you never thought you'd hear so much about research, did you? But as we become more sophisticated patients and more sophisticated patient advocates, it becomes more and more important for patients to understand the research process and understand how to engage with researchers so that we can find better treatments, provide earlier diagnosis, so on and so forth. We provide our member organizations a policy toolkit so they can work on legislative matters in their own communities. INCA has also published in various medical journals, which again provides legitimacy amongst clinicians and researchers. And then I do want to make sure that you guys take a look at these net info packs. So if you go to incaalliance.org, there are patient education materials. They're part of the net info pack. And we have over 24 net info packs on various types of NETs. They cover everything from symptoms to diagnosis to treatment to monitoring, and it gives the basic of the illness in a very easy to understand language. So I encourage you guys all to go to incaalliance.org, find the net info pack associated with your type of neuroendocrine tumor. It's just handy to have, and to date, these have been downloaded almost 10,000 times by patients and clinicians. Okay, I know Lisa talked a little bit about Net Cancer Day already, but the reason it probably weighed in to today's date, is tomorrow is November 10th, and November 10th means Net Cancer Day. And this is an annual campaign that is by far INCA's largest effort every year to raise awareness about neuroendocrine tumors amongst the general public, as well as clinicians, researchers, patients, and caregivers. It's been held for over 10 years now. And last year was our most successful ever. We had over 41 million impressions made online, and we reached over 26 million people. So this year, we're kicking off tomorrow, and you can get your toolkit at incaalliance.org. And Heather's also going to speak after me, and she'll tell you some specific ways that you can celebrate Net Cancer Day and help to raise awareness in your own way. So let's take a moment and talk about SCAN. So this was a 2019 global assessment of NET patients and healthcare providers. It was a self-administered online questionnaire. It was available in 14 languages because we are an international organization, and it identified unmet patient needs. And it was the largest and most significant of its kind. Over 2,300 patients responded. Maybe some of you actually took that survey, if you'll remember. And over 400 healthcare providers responded from 68 countries. So overwhelmingly, it was the largest survey of its kind that provided the patient voice, which we hadn't seen in research to date. So there's been quite a few advancements in NETs since 2019, and that's a good thing, right? But what we do know, we're planning to do another scan next year, which is really exciting, so I hope you all take part in that survey. But what we do know is that NETs are on the rise. The incidence is on the rise, so more people are being diagnosed, and NETs are more common than brain, ovarian, and cervical cancer. But we've all heard of these probably more often than the general public has, right? So raise your hand if when you were diagnosed you were told it is a rare disease. Right, okay, that makes sense. But I think oh, my text got cut off. But what this is supposed to say here is that, is the rare disease voice representative of NETs? Well, let's take a moment here and talk about the characteristics of a rare disease. So I'm going to need all of your help here to help me answer these questions. So these are commonalities amongst most rare diseases. So less than 60 cases per 100,000 are diagnosed every year. Some of you may not know the answer to this, and that's okay. We'll go through it together. Is this the case for NETs? Are there 60 or less per 100,000? There are. It's less than 60 per 100,000. So we get a check mark for that one, okay? Next is 71% are genetic. Are 71% of NETs genetic? No. So that gets a strike through. Next one, 70% are pediatric onset. Is that true? No. Over 90% have no FDA-approved treatment. Is this true of NETs? Do NETs have any FDA-approved treatments? Obviously, based on our friends here in the room, our generous supporters, we get a hash mark through that as well. Delayed diagnosis is common. Is this true among NETs? Yes, easy peasy. That gets a check mark. Limited research is being done. This is kind of a trick question because you can never have enough research being done, right? But compared to other rare diseases that have no research being done, we're going to strike through this and say that no, there is research being done. This is also a trick question, this one. Lack of experience centers. Overall, there are experience centers, mostly in urban areas. So we're going to give this a little check mark, okay? So out of 7 of these points, we really only identify with 2.5 out of 7 of them. So with that being said, I'd like to ask you all if you think being diagnosed with a rare disease is a good thing. Not really, right? Absolutely not. It does build a sense of community for all of us, and I think that is a good thing. But overall, being diagnosed with a rare disease is not a good thing. So let's actually take a step back and go back to our scan findings, which was the survey. A couple of the most important findings were in relation to diagnosis and ongoing monitoring. Over 2 healthcare providers were involved in most diagnoses, which included 46% surgeon, oncologist, GP, gastroenterologist, okay? Next, healthcare providers most commonly involved in the ongoing monitoring of NET disease management were oncologist and GP. So obviously we have surgeons, oncologists, and gastroenterologists who at least have some familiarity with NETs. But GPs are the hard ones. How many of you, raise your hand, was your GP involved in your diagnosis? Not too many hands raised. We got a half a hand here. Okay. How many of you, I would say, how am I going to phrase this in a positive way? How many of you have your GPs involved in a positive way in the ongoing management of your NET monitoring? A couple. Okay, so we have some work to do, right? So these findings actually helped us in developing this Think NENs program, which is a global educational program for primary care providers. We're officially launching it tomorrow. It's a CME accredited activity, so physicians can get continuing medical education credits, And it has 3 main modules as well as 13 additional modules. It is delivered by a global multidisciplinary expert team of primary care physicians and NEC experts. And anyone can take them. You guys can log online and create an account and watch these. I've watched them. They're really interesting. And I do just pick up little tidbits here and there that I didn't already know. Thank you so much. But really, we need help to get the word out. Pretty much everything that we do, just like lac nuts, is grassroots. So we need your help for you to share with your PCPs, share with any other doctors that you may know, whether they're early career or not in the field of general practice, but really our target goal is to get the word out to general practitioners. Now I'm gonna play this video, hopefully this works, we'll see. It's okay if it doesn't. We won't spend too much time on it, but I don't think it'll work. Darn. Okay. But go online on the INCA website under NET Cancer Day. There are these great videos, and they feature NET patients who also happen to be general practitioners and emergency physicians, and they have a really interesting perspective as healthcare providers about their experience getting diagnosed and managed with NETs. So in summary, we went over a lot. I'm not going to cover every detail, every fact and figure, but I think it's important to leave you with a message of hope because you have at your fingertips a global team. INCA is working for you. Lisa and I are working very hard this week because of NET Cancer Day. Passionate clinicians dedicated to your care, some of whom we've heard from today, and you're in the right place. Researchers dedicated to finding answers, such as Dr. Del Rivero and other really dedicated researchers around the world dedicated to finding answers, and tools to advocate for yourself and your loved ones. So with that, I would like to thank you so much.